Final Fantasy IX is the greatest Final Fantasy game ever made. I know that this opinion is subjective and that a lot of you can likely make solid arguments for many other numerical entries in the series, but I would argue that 9 is by far the greatest for one single reason. It was created for Final Fantasy fans. What I mean by that is, Final Fantasy as a series has evolved a lot from its humble beginnings, and it continues to push the envelope to become a franchise that is more and more catered towards the mainstream blockbuster crowd. All you have to do is take a look at Final Fantasy 15 and play it for a couple hours to see that this is a wholly different franchise from the one it was in 2000. I'm not necessarily saying that to sound negative or even saying that that's a negative thing, only to illustrate what makes Final Fantasy IX so special. I think 9 was, in many ways, the last true Final Fantasy that was made as a love letter for die-hard Final Fantasy fans and as a way to say goodbye to that era of the series. Although I hope it isn't, it may even be the last Final Fantasy of its kind that we ever see in a mainline game. Final Fantasy IX took all the ingredients that won over the hearts of so many gamers over the years. The vast feeling of exploration and the unknown, a myriad of minigames, countless secrets, an engaging battle system, fun and intuitive character advancement, stunning cutscenes, deep characters, and an emotional story at its core. It did all of this with whimsy, laughter, and only taking itself seriously when it was in service of the story being told and the emotions that it wanted you to feel. It's a game I go back to every year, and every time I am rediscovering the joy it evokes all over again. Final Fantasy IX is celebrating its 20th anniversary, and I'm going to take you on a look back, disc by disc, at what made this game so special and examine why it tops so many gamers' all-time lists. This is the Final Fantasy IX 20th Anniversary Retrospective.
As long as we remember.
Final Fantasy IX starts with a breathtaking cutscene, at least by 2000 standards, and sets the stage beautifully. After this, we're quickly thrust into battle so we can wrap our heads around its concepts. This includes a return to 4 party members in battle, which are smartly shown to us right from the get-go. This is the first example that we are returning to Final Fantasy's roots. Even this initial battle has secrets, as if you steal enough before downing the enemy, you can receive an early Mage Masher for your troubles. This is a constant theme throughout Final Fantasy IX's battles, and you'll often find yourself stealing from bosses excitedly to see what great gear and weapons you can find. After this, we're into another cutscene where we are introduced to what is arguably the best character in the game, if not the entire series, Vivi. Vivi embodies classic Final Fantasy with his original Black Mage design, but he's also insanely lovable, and much of the emotion in the story of this game comes from his character and the things that he goes through. Once you're in control of Vivi, Alexandria is full of hidden items and gil if you're willing to poke around, another theme that becomes apparent in this game. Final Fantasy IX teaches you early to explore and be rewarded for your due diligence. Speaking of patience, the game wastes no time introducing you to mini-games with a jump rope minigame. There are several rewards waiting for you if you have the fortitude and patience to jump, and jump some more. And then there's Tetramaster. Tetramaster evolves on Final Fantasy VIII's Triple Triad and introduces a new card minigame that, if it's your thing, will provide hours of entertainment as you challenge different NPCs, whether through side quests or even sometimes the main game. It's yet another element of paying tribute to past titles, even if it's only the title that came right before it. Let's skip ahead a bit to another minigame where Zidane and Blank are putting on a performance for the crowd. So much of what is memorable in the PlayStation era of Final Fantasy for me is how the games would constantly keep you on your toes, mechanically speaking. Most games these days introduce a new control system or mechanic, and then you can expect to see it used throughout the game. In Final Fantasy games of old, you would literally get a system like this button timing one with Zidane and Blank, do it once and then never do it again. Some can argue that it's a waste of the mechanic. I would argue that it makes these moments more special and memorable by isolating them to specific parts. If there were button timing events throughout Final Fantasy IX, I'd remember this one a lot less. Our hero soon meets with our heroine, and the kidnapping plan turns sideways when it's revealed Princess Garnet wants to be kidnapped. From there, we are off to the races. Steiner, Garnet's sworn protector, is introduced and is thrust into the story as our character of law and reason. Steiner is the third character that you briefly control in the first hour of the game. It may seem insignificant, but there's an importance being placed on each of these characters. You'll control more party members throughout the game, and that's because they're all important, and they all have their role to contribute. These aren't just side characters being used as tools to further the story. The Evil Forest portion of the game hammers home the idea of bonds and emotional ties to characters by giving us our first character, Death, or so we think at the time. We haven't known Blank long, but it's still shocking to see his sacrifice, and it really hit me when I watched this part for the first time as a kid. I was right there with Zidane and Tantalus in wanting to find a cure, and this cure storyline is expertly woven throughout a portion of the first part of the game, so it has meaning and you're constantly wanting to see how it comes to a conclusion. The Evil Forest portion of the game also forges the bond between Steiner and Vivi, which is absolutely crucial in humanizing Steiner. Steiner has otherwise so far been an annoying and crass character who is only trying to foil Zidane, and therefore the player. However, when we see how he respects and interacts with Vivi, a character that Square Enix was sure to know would be a fan favorite, we suddenly feel a little more comfortable with Steiner and try to see his side of things. After this, we step out into the world for the first time. Many Final Fantasy games have this moment where you first step onto the world map, and even though you certainly can't go anywhere you want, you still feel like you can. You want to explore around each mountain, you want to find out if there's any secret towns or caverns or places you shouldn't be going yet. The earlier these moments are introduced, the better, because it's a hook. It hooks us into realizing this world is vast and waiting to be explored. And since we can't explore it yet, we are dying for the moment we can. The Ice Cavern, though brief, introduces us to the Black Waltz. The 3 Black Waltzes will be important early antagonists, especially in terms of forwarding Vivi's character and his storyline. Garnet now undergoes a name change, which is Final Fantasy IX's unique way of letting you name her, giving her an alias. After all the dark areas and dark narratives, Final Fantasy IX smartly grants you a reprieve, and I'd argue that the Village of Dali is one of the most memorable areas of the game because of how and when it's introduced. This is your first opportunity to calmly explore a new locale, slowly uncover the dark mystery happening here, but otherwise relax around town and feel like you're truly dipping your feet into this new world and its citizens. It's for much of these same reasons that I believe Calm is so memorable in Final Fantasy VII. It also helps that Vivi's emotional journey takes its true first steps here, and he begins to question his existence, his place in the world, and what it all means. These are feelings that all of us can relate to and all of us feel at one point or another, so watching Vivi go through these emotions in such a visceral and real way is one of the best parts of Final Fantasy IX's narrative. I haven't even mentioned active time events. They might seem tacked on and unimportant, but being able to check in with our characters, even when Zidane isn't around, is crucial. It again forges a bond with all of these characters. What they do when they're away is important. What they do outside of our party is important. These characters and what they are experiencing is important even when they're not with us. After escaping Dali with new information about the Queen and Alexandria, we board an airship in classic Final Fantasy fashion and are soon gifted with one of the most important and memorable cutscenes in the game. Black Waltz number 2 kills several black mages without hesitation in front of Vivi and our party. Even with only a pair of eyes for revealed facial features, the music and his expression truly allow us to feel Vivi's pain. His body language only amplifies this, and our characters, despite only having been together for a short time, rally behind him. This is the first big moment of camaraderie and coming together for our party. The battle with Black Waltz number 2 is so satisfying because of this scene, and the escape through Southgate is incredible. It's now time for us to step foot in my favorite location in the game, Lindblum. This grand city and its castle just completely embody what Final Fantasy is. Its NPCs, shops, locations, story elements. It's no wonder we make multiple trips here throughout the story. One just would not be enough. We are introduced to a new character and party member in Freya. Admittedly, on my first couple playthroughs as a kid, I didn't think much of Freya, but over the years as I've returned to the game, it's heartbreaking to see her storyline unfold, and her quest to find her lost love is well told and gives her great focus and depth. The storyline has moved along here as implication for Queen Braun's actions have set the stage for future conflict. A little later, Zidane finds Princess Garnet on the roof, and we get a taste of my single favorite theme song of any Final Fantasy, Melodies of Life. This song to this day still gives me goosebumps. The The game also does a clever thing in letting you look around at the nearby world through a telescope, tipping you off to some optional areas nearby and again, feeding your exploratory soul. The Festival of the Hunt, another absolutely thrilling diversion that gives you multiple outcomes, incentivizes playing it multiple times, and keeps you on the edge of your seat to keep up with the scores and also find the big enemies for big points. As a young player, the Festival of the Hunt was something I always looked forward to every time I replayed this game. From here, we eventually leave Lindblum and head for Burmecia to assist them after they were attacked by Black Mages and Queen Braun. This quite literally ties everyone's storylines together. This is Freya's hometown, and she understandably means to interfere. Vivi has a direct tie with the Black Mages, and his storyline is constantly moved forward and evolved by their involvement. Garnet's mother is the one behind this attack, and she is looking to discover what made her mother become this way. Steiner is torn by his loyalty to the kingdom, to Garnet, and to the Queen, and these events risk tearing his values apart at the seams. Zidane is driven to help his old friend Freya, his new love interest Garnet, and his new friend Vivi. Square has expertly given each of our characters an emotional reason to be involved here. None of the characters are simply going along to see how things play out, and that's what makes them all so special and cared for. Before we reach Burmecia, we are able to once again explore the world map, but this time we're rewarded with optional locations that have story and secrets to discover. The Chocobo Hot and Cold game is introduced, which opens up a world of possibilities, literally, as the more you develop your Chocobo, the more we can explore the world, even earlier than we are supposed to. And the item and gear rewards are exceptional. We are also able to visit Q Marsh early and get an early look and introduction to the weirdest character in Final Fantasy IX, Quina. Quina definitely has the least depth of the characters, but even they are given some meaningful reasons to adventure out and for us to continue to care about them. Quayle's words to Quina, "Quina, you in darkness, need some light, world big place, many foods." May seem like hollow words given to a bizarre character, but it's an analogy that carries through all of our lives. We all have those periods where we live in darkness, trapped in our hometowns or other cities, never experiencing just how vast and interesting the rest of the world is. We stay in our bubble, stop feeling amazed every day, and get used to the norm. Quina's journey is about leaving that bubble and discovering everything the world has to offer. In this case, food. And of course, the frog minigame is first introduced here, which is another minigame that will carry out throughout the entire course of Final Fantasy IX and offer grand rewards if you partake. Yet another diversion the game offers you from the main quest. In order to get to Burmecia, our characters travel through Gizamaluke's Grotto, a dark, dank place full of black mages and new antagonists, Zorn and Thorn. Zorn and Thorn are jesters and fit their roles perfectly. They strike the right balance of basic amounts of menace mixed with bumbling fool. It's here that Final Fantasy IX also offers completionists and those looking to maximize their characters as early as possible the opportunity to fight battles well ahead of your current level range. And with some clever planning and strategy, you can advance your characters much further than is intended at this point. This is an example of offering players another way to play Final Fantasy IX on future playthroughs. The boss battle with Master Gizamaluke is tough, and I'd say one of the first real tests that the game throws at you. It's a skill check and a level check, especially if you have the patience to steal the valuable item from him. This is a fight I look back on with fond memories of struggling to overcome it as a kid and being ecstatic and feeling on top of the world once I finally did. After the battle, Final Fantasy IX pivots again and turns our attention to Steiner and Garnet's journey back to Alexandria. This is yet another opportunity for the game to put you in control of a different character. Two, in fact, as you'll control both of them. The game switches us back to our four other characters as we arrive at Burmecia and talk about a poignant and brooding location. There's something especially eerie and unsettling about Burmecia, and yet also something unforgettable. I love Burmecia. It's just a perfect example of properly crafting a mood for a location and differentiating it from anything before or after. The climax of Burmecia and subsequently of Disc 1 is perfect. We get reintroduced to Beatrix, a formidable foe who will fight often throughout the game and constantly be overwhelmed by. Beatrix is made to feel like a real threat. And of course, after the battle and at the conclusion of the first disc, we meet who will become the big bad of the game, the silver-haired Kuja. We learn very little here, but it's an absolute perfect way to end Disc 1, as we are teased of the future and realize there is much more to fear beyond the Queen and her army. And so ends the first chapter of Final Fantasy IX, and as memorable as it is, there's still so much more to experience and discover, so make sure you come back to watch part 2 of this 20th anniversary retrospective as we take a look at Disc 2 of this magnificent game. And if you're enjoying this commemoration and want to lend your support to what I'm doing or to my channel as a whole, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and or leaving a comment. All your support is much appreciated and helps me continue to do what I'm doing. Thank you so much, and we will see you soon.